Hello, good afternoon. I'm Eva and that's Malcolm. He's my boss and he's my very supportive boss. So he said to me, Eva, given that this is your first time presenting, if you get stuck, don't worry. I'm just going to grab my hat and cap and I'm going to do a bit of a dance, tap dance while you get your thoughts together. So you might get to see him dance today. And thank you very much for our introduction, Carmel. So basically, what we wanted to share with you today is to talk about some aspects of our paper. So essentially, our paper was about how, about the increasing shift and need to present information visually, whether it's video footage, motion graphic, animation, data visualization. This type of content can generate large data that would need to be stored and catalogued, accessed and maintained over long periods of time, and recently and increasingly indefinitely. And this type of content can generate large data, and therefore we need good data management plans in place to support this type of activity. Now, we covered this information in detail in our paper. But we made the assumption that you would have access to our paper in advance, so you would have read it. So our intention today was to actually build on that content and to tell you a little bit and to give you a little bit more value for your time and tell you about how our team is helping researchers to tell the story of their research, why we feel that this is important, and what institutions can do to support this type of activity. And at the end of our presentation, we would like to show you a short 5-minute animation which we produced, which is really about one of our processes, but we also produced it as a self-help tool for our researchers. Now, we only just completed this animation, so this will be our first showing, so we would welcome your feedback on it. So it's just very quickly to give you a bit of a background about our team and about our project. Our team, the media production team, has been around since 1983 in some shape and form, and we have supported many different areas over the years. But in 2013, our team joined eResearch Services, which is Malcolm's area, originally with the intention to help the team to tell stories about the many innovative and cool technologies and tools they were and they are developing in partnership with researchers. So the media products that we have produced with them were really valuable and successful, so we have expanded our resource and made it available to research centers and institutes because we saw a need and an opportunity there to help. So why telling the story of the research is important? Simply put it, telling the story of the research is important because researchers need the support of community and industry to further their research. And in order to get their support, they need to be able to talk about their research in a manner that we can all understand and appreciate. And even in our paper, we talk about how presenting information visually, even if it is really complex information, can make that information more accessible, more digestible, more engaging, and therefore that will deliver the kind of engagement that our researchers are looking for. In our paper, we also talk about how presenting information visually will soon become a standard expectation. So we are working with our researchers to make this clear to them and to get them involved and engaged in talking and thinking about their research in a visual environment and in a visual manner. So essentially, our focus for the past 18 months has been to help researchers to translate their stories or their research into stories, with the key elements being showing something and saying something new, creating emotion and making it engaging. So this actually would be the part where I would get a bit of engagement from my audience, and I would ask you, can you work out the story just by looking at the images in these slides? But unfortunately, we don't have enough time for that today, so sadly, I have to answer my own question. But hopefully, while I mentioned that, you have already been trying to think about what's going on the screen there. Now, these images were taken from one of our projects called Playful Engagement. And the purpose of that particular video was just to show how drama can make a positive impact in the lives of people living with dementia. Now, this type of content in our institution, in a research environment, often presented as a talking head. But in this case, what we wanted to do is let the images to tell much of our story. In fact, ideally what we wanted to achieve is if our audience turned the sound off in the video, could they still figure out what's going on and what is happening on the screen? Because if we're able to achieve that, we have been able to engage them emotionally, and therefore having that emotional engagement will get them going and get them interested and look into the project, and therefore bring value to the project. So what have been achieved for the past 18 months? Look, I think we have achieved quite a lot. Our team is very small. We just got 2 full-time staff, and this is 50% of our capacity. So we created a 12-month plan. So what that means is we work about 3 to 6 months ahead with our researchers. We start engaging with them to talk to them about how they want to use our help, what sort of stories would they like to have, and get them prepared. By the time we get into production. We produce 26 products with them. We're currently making another 10. And we're talking about complex products. We are not just a talking head. And we obviously continuously scoping for new projects. We work with 10 Griffith Research Centers, and this is a really important metrics for us because ideally we would like to work with all of our research centers and institutes because we do want them to get a bit of a taste about what it's like to do a video about their research instead of just presenting it as a paper and what value it could bring to them. We created what we call a 4-phase media development model, and I'm going to talk to you about that next because you might find that useful. And we also actively review our work with our researchers, and I will touch on that also. Now, we conducted a review of our Service 2 researchers about a year ago, and we have captured some of our findings in our research paper, so if you're interested, you can find it there. And finally, we are soon to launch our digital media archive. And that's going to be, I think, at this point in time, housed in Equella. So what we've done there is we have gathered all the materials that we have been able to get our hands on that was produced by the media production team. And some of that content actually dates back to 1970, so it goes back a long way. We digitized what we were able to do, create really strong metadata around it so people can search for it. And we are going to make this available to the Griffith community. Obviously, in the meantime, we'll be adding more material to it, and hopefully, eventually, our community will contribute to that body of work. So all of a sudden, we've got a lot of visual resource to work with. So this is the little model that I was talking to you about. Now, we created this 4-phase media development model, essentially because when I started my conversation with researchers, I realized that most of the focus was about the development phase. So generally they would ask me questions like, how long does it take for you to make a video or an animation for me? And do you think we could do the filming in the next 2 weeks? Because I'm going to go on research leave for 6 months and I won't be around. So what I wanted to achieve with this model is I wanted to show them that there are other critical phases in what I call the media development life cycle that are as, if not more important than the development stage. So that's the purpose of the little model. And our video, the animation that we're about to show to you, is about the scoping phase, which I feel is very critical and often gets lost because people jump straight to script writing, yet they haven't thought about what sort of a content to put in there. And We do, this is a little bit of a feedback from our researchers. So we catch up with our researchers and our clients 6 to 8 months after we produce products with them, because we want to find out how they find the production process, what they learn from it, what we can learn from that. But more importantly, we are really interested to find out how they used the products we made with them and what sort of a benefit it brought to them. So I just picked a couple of items from our list. We have got quite a lot, a good body that we have collected. But for instance, Wendy Moyle, one of our researchers, says that she's got $10,000 from a person. And I remembered her telling me the background story to that. She said, oh, Eva, this person saw your video. Well, it's not my video, it's our video on YouTube, and she phoned me and she said, can I come and visit you in the lab? So she went and met Wendy in the lab and then gave her $10,000 to support her work. And also the other thing that Sharon's doing, this really cute little program called Let's Go, where she's encouraging young children and their parents to walk to and from school, and she really needed some community support. So with the help of the video, she was able to engage the Redlands City Council, which is my council area, so I'm very proud of them, to engage 6 schools in this program over a 6 months period. And not only that, they actually given her money to develop an app. So when we're talking about these products bringing value and making an impact, this is what we're looking for. These short little 2.5 minute, 3 minute little production can actually bring a lot of attention to a research project from community and industry and further that research. So that's why we feel that telling stories is really valuable. The one thing I didn't mention here, and I might just touch on that, is while I'm talking to researchers, one of the things I do, please start collecting visual materials early in your research. Because by the time you get to come and talk to me or somebody like me, I will have something to work with. And instead of having to recreate everything from scratch, maybe we can tap into some of the stuff that you have been collecting over the years. But obviously, they will need to have some idea of how to do that. And I think Malcolm will cover some of that. Next, he's going to talk about what institutions can do to support this type of activity. Thank you.
Thank you. So where do institutions come into the picture here? As Eva said earlier, there's a lot of areas that institutions need to think about. Some basic things are around just raising the awareness of what the potential of video is, and how you can use that in your research. And that also flows back to just some of the basic skills. Most of the consumer technology we have today can capture good quality content. It's a user problem. And it's about making sure you've got the technology with you at the time you want to capture some of this stuff. So some of these skills, fit for purpose, don't need a whole production team floating around. It just needs someone with the right equipment at the right time and knowing how to use it. So there's that basic skills area. The other thing is, if you look around most institution websites, most of the video stuff goes into marketing. It's the high quality, the stuff they push up on the website to push, someone's cured malaria or something like that. But even some of the PhD projects have got quite an interesting story for engaging with particular community groups and industries. So how do you expose some of those good stories that are natural for some of this type of method of delivery? And again, I guess a segue from that is we need to get beyond websites. Some of our early conversations were around, I need to do a talking head and put it up on my centre website. It's got to be further than that. So one of the conversations Eva has is with researchers about what's your release plan. It's got to be more than just putting it up on a website. People need to go and look at it in YouTube. They need to be able to find it. Or is it for a particular conference, in which case you look for different places to put it. So we need to get beyond the sort of fixed, everybody will come to my website idea and think about how you leverage some of the social media aspects. As well as that, there's the content. We've got to capture it somewhere. We develop media products which the way we regard it, the owner is the researcher. But there's a lot of raw material that can be reused for lots of other purposes outside of the project. And that's the other reason we're trying to capture some of that as well. So while we want to keep the content close to the research project, so 5 years down the track you can go back and look at the content, we need to make some of this content available for other purposes as well. Say maybe a researcher's done a video but the centre wants to use it in a couple of years, they just want some of the raw materials. Probably the two other areas, one obvious one which we struck was just looking around our academic groups, most of the money seems to be spent reactionary about hiring technical people to develop videos. And what we've learned is that probably the money would be better spent hiring producers and directors, because it's not that difficult to contract in camera people and audio people if you need them, even on casual basis. But it's hard to find people who can do the producing and the directing and scripting those stories and working very closely with the researchers. And I'm not talking about marketing here, it's actually people who understand what the researchers are trying to do. From a higher level, Griffith, like most universities, elements that Eva's been talking about are already being done in a whole lot of places around the institution. Learning and teaching, some AV groups do a bit of it. So for any institution, they're going to have to think about how, if they are going to deliver this as a service, who's in the right place to deliver what element of the service. Learning and teaching have a different sort of emphasis on what they're producing around structured courses, so this is a different sort of, it's still in the same area, but it's a different approach. So getting down to what's this got to do with data management. So one of the, when we did the review last year, one of the, and Eva just mentioned it then, one of the big needs we need to, researchers need to think about is to capture this content the moment they start their project. It's almost impossible or extremely difficult to recreate images from previous times. So if you're holding that workshop early in your project that you want to capture for later use, if you're on a field trip or whatever, capture it then and store it, because that's pretty good raw material for someone like Eva to use later on to build up a complete story, if you like. So if you're going to have this conversation with researchers at the start of the project, the logical time from my point of view is when you're talking about data management, because you want them to keep the content with the research data, or at least align close by to the research data, because it's the story about that research activity. And you need to also look at the, the whole data life cycle, the same as research data. You need a working storage area, and at the end you need to archive it somewhere. So it's just another byproduct of your research activity, if you like. So inside libraries and IT units, when we're looking at our existing data services, we might like to think about how we weave media content about research into those services. And we can do that in a number of ways. General outreach, whether you're IT or AV or your faculty librarians are having a conversation about storage or data management, that's an obvious time to bring it up. Most universities have research impact services or digital literacy services. They both work, some of these activities can work quite nicely into that. This is just another form of using social media for impact. There's an issue around, we discovered that, like most people, researchers aren't aware of the legal requirements about getting permissions to use images and when you're actually working with humans. So if you're having conversations about copyright and IP, it might be an interesting time just to add that about the some of the legal requirements about images, and those release forms have to be kept with the raw material, otherwise they can't use it down the track. And that's the same with research data. You've got to keep the agreements under, or the information about those data sets. And there's a scale here, so fit for purpose. It's the stuff you can create yourself down to the other end of town with the high-class marketing stuff. So the qualities in between and what you're trying to do fit for purpose, which we'll talk about very shortly in a little video clip we did around the scoping side to try and explain that. And in fact, I'll do that right now. On the slides, when you get them, there's some links to some products we've done before, just for references.
Polly, a prominent researcher in aged care, knows the importance of demonstrating the quality and impact of her research. She's written numerous reports, impact statements and articles about it. But instead of writing a paper, this time she's thinking about making a video. Polly's made videos in the past, but they didn't bring the impact she'd hoped for. She was introduced to the 4-phase media development model recently and realises that she's missed some key steps when planning her videos. Feeling a lot more prepared, Polly's keen to make a start. Polly has time and resources to make a video about her research. She's using the media development model to improve her chances of making a video that delivers impact. She starts by listing the reasons for needing a video, but soon realises that her list is too long. The model recommends keeping videos short, sharp and focused on addressing a single need. A new social robot just hit the market, and Polly's keen to test it out in her lab. But robots are expensive, and she hasn't got the funds for it. A video, however, could help her raise money to buy new robots. Polly realises that buying new robots is her most important need. Polly recognises that her video needs to speak to the people who are likely to give her money for her cause. In the past, she's received funds for her research from all walks of life, often from people who've some understanding and a deep interest in dementia care. But identifying her key need has really helped Polly pinpoint the target audience for her video. Polly identifies general and informed as her target audience. Polly's been able to work through the first 2 steps of the model, but when it comes to the visuals for the video, she feels a bit stuck for ideas. She teams up with a media producer to work through the next 3 steps in the scoping phase. When she meets the producer, Polly has 2 ideas for visuals. But through a flow of conversations, the list soon grows. Though keen on using real-life video footage, Polly also discovers opportunities for using motion graphics in the video. She's especially excited about making use of the design ideas and elements from her existing marketing resources. She didn't see the connection between these resources and the video until it was pointed out to her. Polly's thrilled with her progress so far. Her video's no longer simply a talking head. Polly's findings from the sessions with her volunteer patients tell a great story. But her report's long, and it's written in an academic style. Not an easy content to translate into a short and engaging video. But what if, instead of focusing on the report, her video focuses on a dementia patient interacting with the robots? Showing the positive change in the patient's behaviour and mood will really grab her audience's attention. In the producer's experience, it's powerful images like this that drive people to support a cause. Polly agrees, but the subject matter's sensitive, and she feels it'll be difficult to find a patient to film. The producer reminds her that there's lots of discreet ways to record patients without compromising the message. Polly sees the point and decides to make a few calls to find a volunteer patient to film. After making a few phone calls, Polly finds a patient and a carer who agree to be in her video. They're new to the technologies Polly's been testing in her lab and keen to try them. "I think we've just found your story, Polly," said the producer when Polly broke the good news. "We can build a strong and a meaningful script around this scenario," she explained. This situation presents the ideal opportunity to record an authentic and visually powerful piece that people can relate to. In addition, the producer's convinced that including unscripted verbal reactions from the patient and the carer will help make their content easily digestible. Happy with their efforts, the producer and Polly agreed to move the project into the development phase.
That's it. Thank you very much.
So that was the video, and if you've got any questions, we probably have got time for some questions.
Time for questions, if anyone would like to use this opportunity to talk to Eva about her approach. And Malcolm?
Yeah.
Yes?
I just want to be able to see.
Look, I think this is really interesting. I'd be interested in the response from some of the research centres and the directors of those centres, because I think sometimes this is a hard sell. And you kind of touch on it in your video, that the universities prefer you to do a journal paper or something like that. So this idea of, oh, you need to communicate to the general public, how do you sell it to the research institute or the research centre that's here, or do they come to you?
We usually contact the centres directly with some advice from the deans of research. So we ask them for some referrals, if you like, and try to spread the love around the different academic groups. I think there's two different needs, though. A lot of the centre directors either pinpoint a researcher to tell the story about a specific research, or they try and craft up a number of videos that explains their research program across the centre. So sometimes they just say that person's on a winner, go and tell their story, and other times they want to make 7 videos over a length of time that eventually covers all those programs. And it takes time because you're talking about availability of researchers here and the right time where the semester starts and a whole lot of things. So
I could add to that, just from a practical point of view. So when I actually meet with the centre heads or anybody who from the centre who's interested in the video, what I find is one of the things, and this is why we did Polly, is because the first thing we do is we go down that marketing PR type of video. So one of the things that I find difficult is to get them off that. We don't need PR. We just need you know, in Wendy's case, we went through that with Wendy as well. Her script was very PR-y, and I said, Wendy, we don't need that. Can you find me a patient, and we create a story around it? And she said the same. She said, it's really hard to do. I said, okay, well, just have a go at it. And she was so keen, she actually said, yes, I've got someone. And all of a sudden, we've got a completely different angle. And that's how, all of a sudden, she gets a lot of support from it. So what I'm finding is actually the moment I start working with them, and we go through this process, and I can do the pitch with them in about half an hour now because I've done it quite a lot. They actually, I think what they're disappointed about that I can't give them a lot more capacity. But the other thing that they pick up on is, should we actually have some money put aside in our research projects to support this type of activity because I like it. So our problem isn't that we can't sell it. Our problem that we cannot cater for all the people that they want this. And the other thing about it is, I suppose that you really need to be, you need to kind of work in partnership with them and really hear and understand their need and what sort of a product to make with them, because there is not one single product that will suit them. So I feel, and I think that's why we bought it here, because we really feel there's a lot of need for this, but there's not enough money in the budgets for this sort of a product. So we just try to share with you our experience and what we learned along the way.
So maybe to follow up on that, and you know, in one of the diagrams, you showed said to, you know, one of the goals would be to raise basic skills at the beginning of this. Now we've done quite a few of these kinds of things at the University of Auckland, but that continues to be a difficult thing because you just hand someone a camera and send them out, and you've just wasted a whole lot of time because of what you get back. How do you actually approach doing that upskilling?
Can I answer that as well, if you don't mind? Look, It is a really difficult thing because at the moment we're struggling even for people to be able to take a decent photo with an iPhone and to be able to retain it as the largest file format, not something small. So I think there's a huge room for improvement, and I think that's where the literacy librarians, and I think we just recently appointed digital literacy advisors and things like that. But the other thing that we're doing in our team, just to help our researchers, is, for instance, when it comes to the filming activity, we created a little kit for them that we have sourced ourselves and put together that we felt is the easiest to use. And and some of them are actually using it already. And before they go out onto sites, we actually give them a bit of a hands-on training to say, this is what you need to do, this is all you need to do, and this is, you must do this. You must put it on a tripod, for instance, or you must be. So we give them some tricks so they can come back with some really good quality products. And actually, we just finished a video where one of the people from the project team, took the video kit with them to Fiji and Vanuatu and Samoa to capture some information there, and pretty much the entire video, which became 5 minutes long because of this type of content and purpose, I was able to create the most engaging story for them. But again, it required that one-on-one conversation. And look, I think what we're going to find that as the younger researchers come through, they will be quite technical and savvy, and maybe those products will become a little bit more effective for us to use. And with the people who are not so comfortable with this technology, we'll just have to be patient and work with them, because they actually the one who have these really great stories to tell. So we must get them and find them and support them.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your great questions. Thank you. Please join me in thanking Eva and Malcolm. And if you've got any supplementary questions, perhaps you could have those with Eva and Malcolm outside the foyer area.
And if you want the full paper, just come and see me and I can email.
And the poly video will be available on YouTube, and even the little diagram, and we're building on this body of work, so we're happy to share. That's the whole point to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.